Welcome to I Feel Like.
Your ultimate guide to navigating life as a young adult.
We're your hosts,
Anna,
Dan,
and Evan.
and we're here to share our experiences and provide advice on everything from surviving college and forming relationships
the situational etiquette and maintaining a social life.
I feel like it's time to start the podcast.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode. Today, we'll be talking about something that I'm sure everyone has dealt with at some point in their life, and that's making friends. Specifically, we'll be talking about ways to meet new people and make friends in college.
Yeah, so when you're going to college, it can definitely be kind of intimidating to kind of put yourself out there, meet new people. Obviously, it's a new environment. You're kind of, or at least probably outside of your comfort zone a little bit. You might not know anyone going into it. So making friends is kind of a huge stepping stone for when you start college. I feel like there are a lot of different ways you can go about making friends. There are a lot of different circumstances in which these interactions can come about, where relationships can be formed. But I think the most prevalent place where you can make friends, specifically in college, and I guess more specifically if you're an underclassman too, is just in the dorms. I feel like the people in your dorm or your residence hall, the people who are in your specific hallways in that residence hall, these are all people who you could end up being really close friends with. And because they're just so close in proximity, I feel like it gives you a lot of space for interaction and for you to form those relationships.
For sure. I mean, that's how the three of us met. We all lived on the same floor, pretty close to each other, and we I don't know, by fate or whatever, we just met. And I know that sounds so cheesy and cliche, but I
By
mean that's kind
fate.
of how it happened. um I guess just for more background, Dan and I were part of a learning community for our major. So everyone who signed up to be in that learning community, we lived in the same hallway and we were all roommates with each other. So that there was already an established connection. We took the same classes and we just spent a lot of time with each other between doing homework, and we lived so close together we were forced to interact, just because you had to go to the bathroom, walk the halls, just kind of like that forced interaction since we were so close proximity wise.
Also, just going with like that proximity too, I feel like when you're in the same hall for the most part, you're normally, I don't really know what to call it, but like you're kind of in the same group. Like you'll probably have the same RA, all of you guys. So if you have like hall meetings or like hall activities, it'll probably be the same group of people that you're doing these activities with.
I don't want to say it was desperate, but you know what I mean? Like, just in the beginning, I think everyone's friendly and everyone's trying to make friends. And I think I wouldn't worry too much about just meeting new people and seeing who you do click with. And I think, I just did kind of get lucky with the people that I met I liked and I stuck it out with more.
Yeah, so just for some background on how Evan kind of got into the mix, Evan lived in my residence hall, but he lived like in the adjacent hall to us, so he wasn't like in our direct
Yeah, I
like.
was in the same floor. It was
Yeah,
just
you were
down the
you were
hall a
close
little
to
bit.
us, but you
Yeah.
were
He was in
definitely.
a different learning community for a
Hmm.
different major, so there wasn't a ton of intermingling between the
Mhm.
learning groups.
I
He
did
was.
not like my community.
Yeah,
So,
and I feel
yeah.
like one thing that I've definitely found, especially freshman year, is like I feel like everyone freshman year is trying to make friends. Like for the most part, no one really goes in with having an established group. So like in Evan's case, where like he didn't really like his learning community, our learning community was more than fine with him kind of joining us, just because everyone's just so open to making friends. No one wants to be that person who kind of just doesn't have anyone to talk to, unless you want to be that person, that's fine. But for the most part, I feel like everyone kind of is open to making new friends and everyone's pretty nice and accepting, or at least from my experience freshman year.
Well, I know the place that I first met you guys was at a hall event, like, during our kind of intro week where they were doing all the different activities and, all the different campus things. That's where I know I met you guys, and I met a ton of other people from your learning community that made me meet you. But so definitely, I don't know what your school will have, your first week, but definitely go to as many events that interest you as possible, because that's where you're going to meet people that have similar interests to you. So that's definitely what I would do.
Yeah, I think those events that either your RA or your dorm hall sets up, or those kind of freshman orientation events, are a good way to meet people. I mean, right off the bat, it's probably not gonna be this deep personal connection, but just those kind of casual conversations and small encounters can lead to better friendships and relationships later on. I mean, you have to start somewhere, and just meeting someone briefly could result in, hey, you want to come get lunch with us at the dining hall, which is, another opportunity to get to know them. And then you might get invited to something else from there. So um, definitely don't be discouraged if your relationships kind of seem superficial or not meaningful at first, but that's just kind of how it goes.
I wanted to note, just for other people like me, maybe, that I don't have a lot of social media. The one I do have is Snapchat, and I'm so glad I had Snapchat, just because I know that people weren't giving out phone numbers when I met people. They were exchanging Snapchats and Instagrams, and I'm very glad that I had one of those, because you know you're not if you're not living with the person, you need a way to communicate and be like, oh, we're gonna go do this then. And if I hadn't exchanged that information with them, they never would have been able to reach out to me. I never would have connected and done more things in the future. So definitely just be aware that you might have to sacrifice some things and get a social media so that you can make some friends.
And then for those of you who aren't on a high horse of not having social media, I'd say just don't be discouraged too if like things don't necessarily work out for you. I think I stand by the fact, and I think that all of us do, that people are very open to meeting new people freshman year. But I also think that people just naturally have like, if you're not constantly like there, it might be hard for them to continually remember like, oh yeah, I met this person at this event, let me invite them here. And I just would say don't take it personally. Freshman year, especially like orientation week, your welcome week, whatever you have, like you're going to be meeting a ton of people. Like I met so many people welcome week, and like I got a lot of their like Snapchats, numbers, things like that. But like for a lot of those people, I don't think I talked to a good amount of them after that first week. So I just say like if you like were thinking, oh, maybe I have a good connection with this person, but they're not texting me, like definitely don't be discouraged. They might have just forgot. And if you want to continue that, maybe you should definitely reach out to them. And I'm sure that they would be more than happy to kind of form that connection.
That sounds so mean. Maybe they just forgot.
No, if someone's not reaching out to you, definitely take the shot and reach out to them. It doesn't hurt to just try and connect with someone. What
Mhm.
I was gonna add in terms of going to events, I think some good advice to give would definitely be to go with like your roommate. Definitely drag them along. Definitely see if they'll go somewhere with you. It's definitely intimidating to go by yourself, and I'm sure your roommate too is trying to make friends. Even if you're not friends with your roommate, it's definitely nice just to have another body with you, just that you can, you know,
So you
have
don't look like a
around.
loner.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So definitely see if you can coordinate and do that. Even if you're not perfectly best friends with them.
I'd also say just like going a step back from that, make sure that you are going to these events. Like, don't be the person, if you want to make friends, don't be the person who just kind of sitting in your room waiting for things to happen. Because I think all of us share this experience, but like, yes, you can make friends once classes start, once like things get back into a normal schedule. But I feel like those orientation week, that welcome week, when you do have all those like freshman activities, that's the best time to make friends.
I feel like another thing that might be important to note on is about coming into college with friends, like high school people that maybe they're going to the same college as you. I feel like that's definitely an option if you want to continue to be friends with them. But if you're looking for more friends, then I feel like you got to put yourself out there the first week, or else it's going to be tough in the future, to kind of branch out, I think sometimes. So definitely just know what you want to get out of it. And also, like, you know, this is kind of a side topic, but, know if you actually want to, like, room with them and things like that, just be aware of what you actually want.
When I came into college, I didn't necessarily have a best friend or someone from my friend group go to the same college as me, but I knew someone who, I had been pretty good friends with a few years back, and we kind of, like fell out toward the end of high school, but we were still like friendly-ish. So I mean, it definitely was nice to have someone that I knew, especially in those early days, so it didn't feel like I knew no one and I was as alone. And it was nice just to, I guess, always have kind of a backup person if you needed help with something, or it was nice to coordinate rides home and stuff like that. But I don't have experience coming in with a best friend, but I could definitely see that could almost, I don't want to say it's a bad thing, but I think you kind of just get too comfortable and you feel like you already have a group, that maybe you're a little bit more hesitant to make new friends and put yourself out there more. But maybe that's not always the case.
I mean, like, I can't necessarily speak to every case, but I know when I started college, I did start college with probably my best friend at the time. And not that we weren't still very good friends in college, but I think an important aspect of if you go to college with like a friend, a good friend, things like that, is that you both have an under is that you both have an understanding kind of what you want to do. I feel like my best friend at the time and we both kind of had an understanding that we both wanted to make new friends as well as still be friends in college. So I think just being able to like make that distinction, setting those boundaries for you and your friend, just so like Anna was saying, you don't become too comfortable, you don't become too reliant on each other.
You definitely want to make sure that maybe you do want to continue to be best friends with, whatever friend you have, but definitely don't limit yourself to one friend. Definitely try and make and meet new people and try and expand that, I guess. I mean, maybe having one friend works for other people, but I feel like it's definitely nice to have some other options at least, just in case.
And you're definitely going to have different levels of friends, right? You're going to have kind of your close inner circle core group, and then some people that are more just like, so sometimes in bigger groups, you'll hang out, do some casual activities, and you're probably more friendly with them. But obviously not as close knit as your first group. And then you'll probably just have people who you just see in the dorm, you wave to them, say, "Hey, how are you?" And then that's it. And that's perfectly fine to have different levels of friendships. And honestly, they're all good and valid. And even just having those casual, "Hey, how are you?" moments, like they do make you feel good. And it does make you feel like you're a part of something. And it makes you feel like you do have more of a network and I guess a friend group.
I don't know about adulthood, but I feel like this is definitely the time to do this friendship thing, and definitely make as many friends. And what you were saying about like having those casual friends, like I do agree that that's definitely something that you're gonna want. And you don't have to be best friends with them. And maybe you guys could always get together and talk about classes and figure that out. There's definitely different levels to friends and uses to friends, I guess. It sounds kind of weird to say that my friends have uses, but you get it.
No, I feel like Evan has a really good point, and that almost like makes me think of another distinction of class of friends. And those are just kind of like friends that I've made like through classes, through my majors, things like that. Um, I know that I can't really speak on this too much just because I don't think I'm great at making friends in my major. But like I feel like it's very good to have like one close friend in your major.
I mean, I've definitely talked about this several times when we've talked about classes and other things like that and schedule. It's definitely nice to have someone in your major or in a class with you that you can coordinate scheduling or coordinate the material that is everyone's struggling on and things like that. Like it's definitely nice to have a friend that you don't have to hang out, they can just be for classes. So definitely still nice to have that.
Kind of going along with that and the whole dorm situation, I know it's not for everyone, but if you are really concerned about making friends or maybe even the class aspect of it, I really would highly recommend joining like a learning community or something like that if your college offers it. Um, just because it really was nice to have a group of people that I lived closely with, and especially academically, it was so helpful. We took the same classes, there were a lot of study groups going. There was always someone you could just shout down the hall and they'd answer if you had a question. People were always willing to help you on a question you didn't know. Or if you just had a question about when something was due, people were always, always, always willing to help you out. And I found that so valuable. And I mean, unfortunately, like a lot of people who were in that living community dropped the major. But if I were still in that major, I would probably interact with those people until I graduated, just because it's common classes and common coursework.
Because definitely when you're actually in classes in a giant lecture hall, it's gonna be tough to meet people and connect with people. And I think living with people is definitely the best way forward. But if you had to meet people in classes, like it's definitely possible. You're gonna see a lot of the same people in each of your classes, probably depending on your major. So, it's possible, but definitely the dorm is the best way to go.
I think it's so hard to make friends in classes. Maybe it just depends on the type of class and maybe the size of your school. But if you're in a lecture hall with over 100 people, like I came into class, got my spot, got my stuff out, and that's it. I'm not chit chatting with all the people sitting around me and stuff like that. It's just such a big environment that it doesn't feel intimate at all. I mean, maybe you might say, hey, and that might be one of those places where you just kind of see those people and do some waves and some smiles from across the room. But I don't know. I'm sure people have made good friends from classes, but that just hasn't really worked for me.
I feel like if you want to make good friends in classes, if you're just sitting in like a big lecture hall, you probably won't have too many opportunities to talk to each other to kind of form those connections. But I feel like a good way to kind of make connections in your classes is if you get broken up into like groups for like group projects or discussion or whatever. Because most of the time when you have a group project, I feel like normally you share your numbers, you start a group chat or do Snapchat, whatever. And that's just like a way for you obviously to communicate about the project. But then it's also nice that you do have their contact information. So if you ever do have like a question or something about like that class, or if you happen to be in another class at their time, just kind of like text them and be like, oh, hey, it's Dan from whatever class we took before. I just had a question on this. And I feel like, sure, it might be awkward to do that, but like a lot of the time, that is just how you build those relationships, especially when you meet someone not necessarily from a social setting, but from an academic setting. And that kind of will allow you to make these friends at like a more class level, someone who you can be kind of social with, but maybe they're not like your primary friend group or they're not in that friend group, but someone who can still kind of share a connection with and bond over like classes, homework, things like that.
I would definitely agree that the friends you make in classes probably aren't going to be your core group that are going to be your ride or dies, but it's definitely good to have those connections, like Dan was saying, for class related stuff. And sometimes, you know what, it's just fun to complain about a class, to bash the professor, to carry on and stuff. It's just fun sometimes. And it can definitely make a hard class or a bad situation way much more enjoyable.
Honestly, I feel like bashing the class is kind of how you bond with people in the class. So I feel like that's definitely just how I've met people and connected with people, I guess. But it can be tough to like, we've talked about group projects before. It can be tough, if you're not in a good group that you want to be, but definitely be open to working with other people and meeting people because that is it. They're putting you with less people, and again, this lecture hall, it's gonna be tough. So just try to be open and see, try and engage with your group and see if you actually do like anyone in it.
Or even classes that are maybe 25, 30 people that are in more feel more like a classroom rather than a lecture hall. That could be a good place too. I feel like a lot of people kind of have their self-assigned seat. And I think a lot of people tend to sit in the same areas around the same people. So if you're sitting next to someone for the entire semester, I mean, that might be a good chance just to make some small talk, get a little connection going. Maybe it'll just be a relationship that you have during that class and then you never see each other again. But who knows, it could become one of your best friends or something like that.
I think that's definitely the beauty of it, where you might not see them again. So if it doesn't go great, you can just hopefully forget it and
It's a
not see
gamble.
them. Yeah. But yeah, also like if you get to class early and like someone else is standing in the hall with you, you could try and chit chat then. Like it's easier said than done, but there's definitely a bunch of situations where you can try and start something up.
It definitely takes effort to kind of like make these connections. And I feel like you can't go with the mindset that, oh, people are going to talk to me. Sometimes you have to make the first move. And like kind of we've been saying this whole time, yes, it can be awkward, but you do just kind of need to put yourself out there to kind of make these connections that you might be looking for.
Speaking of like putting yourself out there, I think another instance where you might want to try putting yourself out there is looking into things other than like classes, like extracurriculars, and seeing if there's other interests of yours that, would put you in a situation where you would meet more people that have similar interests to you. So definitely look into doing more there too.
Yeah, there's a ton of clubs and I guess even like fraternities and sororities, kind of like special interest organizations. I mean, most colleges probably have some sort of club fair where you can see what different groups are out there, meet some people from those groups and see if you think it'd be a good fit. But yeah, that's another probably the second best way to meet people aside from dorm rooms. And again, dorm rooms is kind of a situation that's pretty unique to freshman year. So extracurriculars, that'll serve you the entire time you're there.
I definitely say that my second closest group, other than you guys, probably who I met in the dorm room, my second closest group is from some of my extracurriculars, and I think a
The
lot of them.
theater friends.
Oh, I wasn't even talking about them, but yeah, they're also close friends.
Then who were you talking about?
I don't want to give out the club, but I'll tell you on the side. Anyway, um, I feel like my kind of second closest group of friends right now is kind of all from an extracurricular where it's like we all have similar interests because we're involved in this extracurricular. Like, sure, I mean, the extracurricular I'm talking about is more of an academic based extracurricular, but I feel like I do kind of have a close group there just because like we all are, I don't want to call us nerds, but like we all have these same interests in kind of these more niche topics. And I feel like that is a good way to meet new people too, is just finding these similar interests in your extracurriculars.
I don't know how sorority and fraternities work, and maybe we'll dive into that in another episode. But I don't know when you join a sorority or fraternity, so I just don't know how that would. I feel like that might be just a little too late into the game, so I would definitely say keep some other options.
No, I think they
Do some other
recruit
options
every
first.
single season almost. Like
Oh,
some people
really?
join Greek life. I mean, I think they start recruiting freshmen when you kind of first get there.
Wow.
I don't know. None of us are in Greek life, so we're not really sure how it works, but that's
But
just our best guess.
I
Is
know
it
that you
that soon?
can, I know that you can start as early as freshman year, but then you can also go into as late as like senior year. Because I know
Mm-hmm.
someone who I work with is going to be a senior, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna rush my last year," and I'm like,
Oh.
"Oh, okay, good for you, I guess."
Yeah, no judgment, but what's the point at that
Yeah,
point?
that's a little late. But I think whatever your take on sororities and fraternities is, that's definitely, you're in a house together, you're living with them, that you're definitely, hopefully you like the people because that's definitely, your group if that's what you decided to do. And that would definitely be a great way to meet people. You'd be living with them. But I do agree that some other clubs and stuff are definitely what you want to do. And it doesn't have to be something like a sport. I'm not into sports, so I'm not joining that. There's more academic things that you could do if you want to do that, or I feel like there's I don't know about other schools, but there's definitely like an activity board or something like that that'll put on activities that you could sign up for or like have discounted tickets.
Oh, the campus
Thing,
activity board,
yeah,
that kind of
yeah,
thing.
that kind of thing where you could definitely find an activity and do with people. So yeah.
And a lot of extracurricular clubs and activities, they do host events. So just by going to an event, even if you're not part of the club, if you just find something and see that it looks interesting, just go. You might meet people. And since it is more activity based most of the time, I think it is an environment that's conducive to making friends. You're doing something, so you're kind of bonding over a shared experience. It's not as awkward as just maybe approaching someone in a class and having to come up with some talking points. And even if you go to an event, just socializing with some other people, and getting out of maybe your house and being alone, even if you never see them again, it's still fun to talk to people and we've been to events where we've met people, exchanged some information, never heard from them, never saw them. But it's the college experience.
I was gonna say that going back to kind of those intro week things and activities that your school's putting on, I would probably guarantee that your school is doing some kind of club fair that you can definitely go to and see all the clubs, and that's definitely a great way to meet the people that you would be working with in this club or being with, and that's definitely, better if you're intimidated to go to a club meeting one day. Like, this is way more casual. You can kind of meet people, feel it out that way. So that way you would kind of know what you're getting into beforehand. Um, but I don't know a lot about sports, but I feel like I kind of regret not doing a sport. Honestly, I feel like that would be a great way to meet people because I know our one friend does that, and I feel like that would have been fun and a great excuse to exercise and stuff like that. So I don't know. I would definitely keep that option open too.
I also feel like kind of just going along with sports, like you might think of like college sports as like this big commitment, like this huge responsibility, like you're constantly traveling, playing like D1 or whatever. But I feel like probably every college that has sports, they also have like club level sports and just kind of intramural level sports, which are just kind of more laid back versions of this. It acts more like a club, like you might meet once a week and just play pickup games of whatever you're playing. So if you're interested in, if you can tell, I'm not a sporty person. But yeah, like I feel like with those types of things of like maybe you don't have the time or don't want to commit to like a full sport, like doing that type of thing could be a great way to kind of meet people who have similar interest in these sports, but they also don't have the time that a D1 sport would take.
And they probably have like sports classes, like a Zumba or like a cycling class. You know what I mean? Other things like that that you could go to that maybe aren't a sport like soccer that you could still meet people and do something like that.
Hmm. I know our gym at our school like kind of hosts like events like that. Obviously not during the pandemic, but like normally like they have like events like Zumba, cycling, things like that. And those are also really good ways to kind of meet people, I guess, during a school year after you've had these kind of like intro week of activities and everything. Because these are basically just events, but like they're during classes, so they're obviously not as intense, I'd say, and there probably won't be as many people, but it still is a good opportunity to meet new people who are interested in the same thing you are.
I just want to put it out there for all my fellow shy people listening right now. I know it's tough. I know it's not ideal, but don't be afraid to go to things alone. I know not having a group or a person to go to an event with can kind of seem scary. I know you don't want to seem like a loser or anything like that, but trust me, if you let a lack of another person going with you hold you back from doing something, you're never going to meet anyone that way. You're going to miss out on a lot of experiences. So, again, easier said than done, but you just have to kind of get over that hump and stop being afraid to do things by yourself. I've definitely done it, and it's been perfectly fine. Nothing bad happened. I mean, maybe it was a little awkward, but I still got to do something cool, got to meet some people.
I
So,
was That's what I
yeah.
was gonna say. Like, even if you don't meet someone, hopefully the activity's still fun, and even if you're alone, hopefully it's still a fun activity that you get to do and be a part of. Like, that's definitely not something to miss out on, even though you might be going alone. Like that, I don't think that diminishes the fun you could be having. Um, but yeah, it's tough for us introverts, right, Anna?
I mean, freshman year, I feel like I kind of always wanted to go to those campus events, but I would bring it up to you guys and you guys wouldn't. And I guess like some other people too, when nobody really seemed interested in them. So I just kind of thought, okay, I'm just not going to go because it's not worth going alone. But, I missed out on some stuff that
Yeah.
probably would have been cool. And so what if Dan and Evan aren't going? It's like 2 hours of your time. It's not like you're signing up to go somewhere alone for a year. I also do want to say, if you can, and if your school does have a campus activity board, definitely take advantage of it. I know it might seem kind of lame, or if there's parties or if you're in the city or something like that, it might seem like there's a million better options, but the campus activity board does put out some good events, and a lot of times they're free. Nothing beats a free activity, free food, stuff like that. Or a lot of times they can give you really discounted tickets that are way cheaper than if you bought them at retail price. So I know it kind of seems lame to do those kind of activities, but if it's something you're interested in, take advantage of it. It's free. You're probably broke. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah.
I definitely I definitely agree with the campus activity board. I feel like my favorite memory maybe of all of college in terms of like things we've all done together in our friend group was our campus activity board did this thing where we went ice skating one night. The tickets were really cheap. I think it was only like $5
No, it
normally.
was like $2, and that
$2, even
included like the
better.
skate rental. We got hot chocolate.
Hmm. And I remember it was probably about like I don't know, maybe like a 15-20 minute walk away, and it was pouring rain. And in the moment, it was so terrible. But looking back, honestly, that was so much fun, like running in the rain in the dark, trying to find this ice skating rink. And I feel like just things like that, like making memories with friends, like it doesn't need to be the perfect event to do. As long as you can kind of make memories and have a talking point to go off from there, that's a great way to make connections, especially your first year.
Even if you go to an event and it turns out to be a flop, like Dan was saying, it's still an experience. And I feel like some of my best memories are like things that were kind of funny because they were so bad. Like one time, I think it was Dan and I, we went to this like Lunar New Year festival because
Oh
they were
my
giving out
gosh.
free food. And then somehow we got in the back of the line and got like the leftover scraps after waiting like 2 hours at this event. And it kind of sucked in the moment, but looking back, I mean, it was kind of fun to complain and just throw a pity party for ourselves.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a great point with I feel like again going off of like bonding over a bad teacher, bonding over sad events like that, I guess, is definitely something that happens. I don't know if this is good advice, but I feel like don't forget to give an excuse to hang out with someone. Like if you're in a class with them and right, you both know you have a next class at 1 and you have like a 30-minute break, just say like, "Oh, let's go to the cafeteria and get some food together." Like there's definitely excuses you can do to hang out with someone or like, "Oh, you want to walk to the next class together?" or something like that. And I doubt you're going to meet anyone at the cafeteria, but it's definitely a great way to be social and maybe bond with someone. And that's another place where you could probably make fun of the food and bond over terrible food and stuff like that. So, yeah, just think about stuff like that.
I know we've kind of said this a little here and there earlier, but I definitely want to stress it's so important to get over any fears or worries you have and just put yourself out there. I mean, as an introverted person, that's definitely difficult for me, but you just have to. You can't wait around and just hope someone comes up to you or just hope you get invited to that one event that you're going to find your best friend group at. You just have to be proactive, and if you want to talk to people, then you sometimes might have to make the invite or start a conversation, which again, easier said than done, but you just kind of have to do it. And you're in a situation like college, everyone's trying to make friends, people are usually pretty friendly. So I doubt people are going to judge you or anything like that. They're probably going to forget the exchange even happened the next day. So I know it can be scary, but it's college is the perfect place to put yourself out there, branch out, meet new people, and kind of just take advantage of those random opportunities to grab lunch with someone or just spend a little time talking.
Kind of with that, I feel like it's also important to note that you might not find your perfect group on the first time. I can't speak for Evan or Anna, but I know like for me, I hopped around a couple groups before I ended up kind of hanging out with them and some other people who were in our residence hall. And I feel like you just have to be okay with that. Like we've been saying, yes, put yourself out there to make these new connections, but also don't be discouraged if these new connections aren't necessarily what you want in a group. Definitely be okay with kind of even if you've found a group and you're not content with it, like going out, making even more connections, and then maybe you'll find that right group for you eventually.
For sure, there's so many people at college, so many different people you probably didn't even know existed. If it's totally fine to not find your ride or die group the first week, month, even year. Sometimes it takes time. And especially when you're first starting out, everyone's in a position where no one knows anyone and everyone's, I hate to say it, but kind of desperate just to feel like they have friends or feel like they belong to a group. So you might commit too early and then realize it's not really what you're looking for, which is perfectly fine. And friend groups change over time. You might add some people, lose some people. So it's definitely kind of a continuous process of putting yourself out there, making friends, meeting people. So you're never kind of like done.
Does anyone have any things that they want to rapid fire? I feel like we gotta come up with something because it's our thing now.
The hot takes.
Our hot takes.
I guess a
Um,
hot take I have is I mean for me personally, I think I do like smaller, maybe more intimate groups, but I mean don't be afraid if you're on the way to the dining hall and you see someone that maybe you're even just kind of like casual friends with. Don't be afraid to invite them. It could be fun. I mean, I've had some fun times where people kind of just got thrown into the mix and I didn't really know them, but it was still fun anyway. You don't always have to keep things exclusive, or sometimes it's fun to mix it up a little bit. I
yeah,
don't know if that was good advice or not. I just came up with that because I wasn't prepared for the hot takes.
no, I feel like what I was gonna say is honestly kind of similar, and I was just gonna say don't go in, especially freshman year, with like an exclusive mindset. Like, don't be like, oh, I found a perfect group of like 3, 4 people, and I don't want anyone else to join. Don't go in with that mindset because it will just kind of bite you in the butt eventually. Because if people leave your group, then you'll kind of be left with, I don't want to say you'll be left with no one, but I'm just gonna say this could all be prevented if you just go in with an open mind in the beginning and be obviously be willing to put yourself out there but also be willing to accept other people putting themselves out there for you.
I guess my thing that I would say is don't be afraid to not do something with the friends you made. Like just because you're in this group doesn't mean you can't go to an event without them and maybe make some different friends. You know, don't be afraid. I don't want to say to ditch them, you know, they can still be your friends. You can hang out with them at other times, but you know, they don't their schedules don't always have to line up with yours and you can always do something without them. That's not a big deal.
Yeah, I almost think it's good to have some different groups, some different levels of closeness, just because it's pretty unrealistic to exclusively hang out with a couple people or one group all the time. And variety is good. Different types of people, different levels of friendliness are good for certain situations.
It's also good if you're, I don't want to say that your main group will be like the worst group ever, but if your group is ever having problems, then it's nice to kind of escape to this other group and you can just kind of have a reprieve from all of the drama that might exist, all of the different politics of friend groups that go on.
I think if you are gonna we're talking about making friends, right? And maybe you've made a connection with someone, but I think to really actually say you're friends with them, you definitely do have to make the time to hang out with them and do something together. So I would just say that, okay, you've got someone's number, you've made that connection, but like reach out, do something together. You know, it doesn't have to be like a whole shebang. It could just be getting lunch or like hanging out after class or just doing homework in the library together. Like there's so many different activities you can do that you don't necessarily have to bond over. You know, you can just kind of hang out, it could be casual. That's kind of, you know, just solidifying a friendship. That's kind of it's it's easy to maybe get someone's number, but you have to be their friend, you actually have to do something. So definitely do those activities with them.
I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I wanted to ask your opinion on this. Do you think that there are, I don't necessarily want to call them cliques, but do you think there are kind of like cliques in college? Like, you know, how in high school there's kind of the different groups and everyone's kind of aware of the groups. Do you think that exists in college, or is it just too many people that it isn't really a thing?
I feel like in college groups exist, but when you're in high school and you have these quote unquote cliques, I feel like they're kind of associated with like a negative connotation and they're kind of associated with like the principle of exclusivity. Whereas in college, I feel like yes, groups form, but they're more based on just we have similar interests, we do similar things. And I wouldn't necessarily, or at least from my experience, I don't necessarily think of different groups in college to be exclusive.
I would think of them as being exclusive, not in terms of like just like I feel like it's way more intimidating in a college just because there are so many people you don't know. And like in high school, maybe you know that clique over there. Maybe there's a clique over there, but you know them. You know the names of the people. You could always go up and talk to one of them. But in college, it's definitely way more intimidating where it's like I see that group hanging out together every day before class, and it's like I'm not gonna go up and say hi. Like that's definitely maybe they're not like clicky just in terms of like the stereotypical, but they're definitely still like clear groups that are based on other things.
I agree that there probably are friend groups, but I think there's just so many people at college. The campus is big. It's not like high school where the same group sits at the lunch table every day. I mean, you don't, I mean, half the people at school, I probably don't even know. I haven't seen them. You don't have a class with them. So even if they are in a group, I just would never know because I don't interact with them. But I do agree that I think after freshman year, after you kind of people go their separate ways and they have a little bit of a group, I do think it is a lot harder to make friends in your upperclassmen years just because it seems like everyone has a group at that point and it's kind of hard just to infiltrate a group if you don't have an in somehow. And I think it's way more intimidating, at least freshman year everyone's in the same position. So people are, accepting spots into their group. But I don't know, maybe that's just my opinion, but I think it's way harder to make friends later on.
I definitely think that the way you're gonna make friends is maybe a one-on-one kind of thing and not you trying to get into this group because that group is definitely gonna be a little more established, I guess, to say. And definitely if as Anna was saying, like definitely make your friends freshman year because those groups are gonna be a little more solid come sophomore year. So definitely do that.
And I think once people start to move off campus, you don't really have that connection of living down the hall anymore. So unless you spark a connection on campus, where else are you going to meet someone? Maybe your roommates, but I mean, maybe that's one or two people. Maybe you don't even like them. I don't know. I just think it's way harder because people probably just aren't on campus as much. They're doing their own thing with their own people. Again, not impossible, but maybe just harder.
Like Anna mentioned it earlier, but I know we both kind of switched majors after freshman year. And I can't speak for Anna in her new major, but I know for me in my new major, I feel like I found it kind of hard to make friends in my new major just because obviously we're in a pandemic now and everything's on Zoom, but also for the fact that like these groups are established. So I think if we are going to emphasize a point, it's A, definitely put yourself out there, but B, put yourself out there freshman year when everyone's in closer proximity and people are more open to kind of making friends.
But I also I don't want to discourage people who have switched majors or something like that because I mean that's not a reason to stay in a major that you don't like because you're scared you won't meet new people. I'm sure we're just a little biased at this point considering we've been doing remote school and we haven't really been on campus for almost a year now. But I mean, you'll definitely meet people. I don't know that they'll be your best friends or anything like that, but you'll have interactions and I'm sure you will get more familiar with people in your classes if you do switch majors. Um, so yeah, I mean, we don't want to discourage you or make you think that if you didn't lock in a group freshman year that you're going to be a friendless loser for the rest of your college time.
And I bet you're not the only one switching majors. I feel like that's definitely a common thing.
I feel like that also goes along with if you're transferring schools too, not just switching majors. And like everyone was saying, there's probably gonna be people who are also in your boat. I know our school has like a transfer lounge type thing where like all the transfer kids can
They
get together.
do?
Yeah, it,
Did
I
not
know
know
there's.
that.
I didn't know that. Are you sure?
yes, I'm very sure.
He's very sure.
I'm
Okay.
very
Dan has
sure.
an in with the school.
I do work for the school. Hot take. But yeah, definitely make use of those spaces if you're transferring, switching majors, and definitely just use the resources available to you to make new connections.
I think we've talked a lot about, different ways to make friends, and it's definitely easier said than done. But at the end of the day, I think you do just have to put yourself out there. And from all of us, I feel like, I guess I would say you can do it because it's, everyone's scared and like you just need to do it and don't be afraid to do it. And I mean, you'll make a friend. Everyone does, right? So I wouldn't worry too much about it. Just do it.
And if you don't have friends at school, we'll be your friends.
I mean,
that is
we'll-
if you
we'll
want to be our
try.
friends.
Well, they are our friends.
We need a name for our listeners, like a fan
For
base.
our fan base.
I feel like being friends.
Oh no. We'll work on that.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode.
Be sure to like and follow our podcast on whatever platform you're currently listening to it on.
Check out our social media, linked in the description, and tune in next week for even more advice.
TTYL.
From IFL.
Bye!